Hurtful comments, how to respond to our elders without burning bridges. Now, you're probably thinking, well, I'm done with them. I'm just going to choose my own family. I think that's what people call curating your relationships. Um, I honor that. I think that there's a place for that. We certainly could have a small family and community that really serve us, and we could love back. However, the I made a video around why when you think you could keep creating your relationships, that there might be something deeper. Um, because I see this all the time, in which when we're hopping in different relationships and not processing, if the reason is that we're not processing, not learning about our own patterns, what you may find, and I don't know if this is the same for you, so leave a comment, is that you will find that pattern in a different relationship. So, in other words, what we don't process, we transmit. But if you have a um, abusive relationship, then that makes sense. Sometimes we do need spacing, even a lot of spacing, with those types of relationship. Some people might just prefer to love their parent parents from a distance if they have been very abusive. So I honor that, and you are the best witness to your own story. But today I'm just talking about, having a relationship with elders, titas, lolas, mothers, fathers, and how sometimes they spit out some hurtful comments like tumaba ka, or bakit wala ka pang anak, how come you don't have a child yet? Now, one of the things to understand, the difference with our culture, and when I say Western culture, it's mainly the culture. I'm going by the research of Erin Mayer. There's a book called Cultural Map, because she actually maps out different variables, such as low context versus high context, um, those who are more direct in their language and those who are more into social harmony. Um, so I'm going to put the countries that are more closely um, similar to the different variables. So when I saying West in this channel, I'm mainly talking about United States of America. I'm talking about Canada, UK. But as you know, all those, if you're Canadian, you're like, I'm not like Americans, because you know how Americans and Canadians also have different feelings probably towards each other. And especially when you hear about people from UK talk about Americans. But I'm just going by the study of Erin Mayer, and how there are many similarities then are different among these cultures, whether they like each other or not. So let's just get that out of the way. Um, the Filipino culture in general, so we're always generalizing here, is a relational, high context culture. So there is a less reliance on direct verbal assertion compared to a low context culture like the American culture. So basically, say what you mean, say what you want, so your needs are going to be met in America or in the Western culture. Um, the relational part of the Filipino communication is sometimes a cause of confusion, even hurt feelings for if you're Filipino brought up elsewhere, because sometimes Filipinos can greet like, "Oh, tumaba ka, you gain weight." Now, now that we know that our children don't like that, we can begin to also change our course. But if you are the adult child of the Filipino immigrant, just know that because the way we speak is relational first, and instead of being transactional. So transactional is you say something because you need an answer, you say something because it's a task, and you're trying to complete or take care of something. Relational is basically, it's almost like you're eating the main course, but you're going to eat the appetizer first. So it just kind of leads you to the main course. And interestingly, if you understand this, I used to do hundreds of home visits in Filipino homes. That used to be my work. People will ask me very personal questions, always make comments, but I understood it was more of an appetizer because they want to know, engage me if I'm in the in group, if I understood their humor. And so this is not to say that they could just say any comments, but if they do, this is what this video is all about. So very important to just know those differences. And when you know, let's say your tita keeps saying na tumaba ka and you kind of, that's a hurtful comment to you. I honor that. Discover the pattern. Here's the first thing you want to do. Discover the pattern. When she does that, what do? Do you kind of grimace and then just stop talking to her? So discover the pattern. Everybody has a different pattern. Maybe for you, just feel bad and you leave. I'm not sure. But discover the pattern, because once you discover the pattern, that's when you can interrupt the pattern. So if you don't know the pattern, you can't interrupt the pattern. I teach this a lot as a therapist. So you will have to do something different, okay, than what you have been doing. Let me just say that I'm going to talk a little bit about trauma, that not everything is traumatic, but trauma now has become a buzzword. It's as if everything is traumatic. I also understand that trauma is the experience of the person. However, the actual definition of trauma, right? If it's so overwhelming to your nervous system, something occurred, and it's like you have different ways, strategies to cope, but you're just not able to. That could be traumatic, of course. But something could be traumatic if it's pervasive, like even if it's a little stabs here and there. I'm talking about words. They're little, but they're pervasive. That can cause something. It might not be traumatic. I call that more an imprint. Like there's an imprint in you. Or it could be just one time, but the intensity is something that your body remembers. Um, One thing to note that except for events of war, that trauma is based on not the event, but actually the message, what is left based on that event, the hurt, the messages that you receive. Basically, it's the feeling that I'm bad. I did something wrong. I don't like myself. I hate myself. You know, that's what creates the trauma rather than the actual event. Then in the Filipino culture, this sometimes the hurtful comments I've heard can be so traumatic. I think that's more of, it became traumatic because of a social contagion. So what that means is that the messaging that we receive from other people is like, grabe, it's like, and that's traumatic according to them, that event is traumatic. I'll give you a little bit, come back to that. When you observe children in the Philippines, I used to be a kindergarten teacher. Interestingly, in America and in the Philippines. It was one of my first um, jobs in America when I first immigrated, but I was a teacher for young children. So it's interesting. I was able to just watch all these dynamics. So, you know, here's a picture, and actually, a researcher has also observed this in the Filipino culture. Let's say a kid trips, like he's walking, and then his barkada, his group of friends, are somewhere on the outskirts, but they saw him trip, right? What could possibly happen is that, oh my God, he tripped, he slipped, and he's like, oh, and then his barkada in the outer starts laughing. If you have a outsider eye, you would just think that is so awful. And it might be, it really depends. But I've seen this a few times. You want to just be slow in observing what occurs. What happens is if the child that tripped, okay, yung nahulog na bata, starts laughing with a group of friends, then that event does not become traumatic to the body. When you observe that scenario, the friends are actually trying to help the child save face, okay, by laughing. Okay, you're laughing, and then he starts laughing. It becomes traumatic or an imprint if the child is alone and he's like, oh my gosh, imagine if everybody were serious, everybody knew what happened. But it was the friends laughing, making almost making fun of it. But then the joining of the person that tripped actually gave him a platform to save face. Thereby, the pattern was interrupted. Okay. Um, I'm going to stop there because it's something I talk about always in therapy. But just so you know, there's a pattern. If you have a relationship, need to discover the pattern and interrupt the pattern. Not everything also is traumatic, but could leave an imprint. And sometimes when things leave an imprint, it could also be the messages of the, if you're listening to Instagram, people say that this is traumatic, you should get upset. Then that's the message you're absorbing. But if that's the case, here are a few ways to interrupt the pattern. So it is up to you to discover what the pattern is. So I gave you the example of the friends laughing to interrupt the pattern. That's number one, is using humor. Okay. So if someone said, oh, tumaba ka, we might say, kaya rin tita, ano kinakain nyo? Okay. That's humor. Okay. And another one is changing the topic. Okay. Somebody said, oh, tumaba ka. Oh, ang ganda yata na suot mo ngayon. Okay. So changing, you're going to interrupt the pattern. You do this enough and it could change the way your body responds to it, because now you have a choice. Okay, if you're driving, somebody feels like it's driving for you, you will get mad because anger comes up when you feel like you have no control. But now you could stir the manibela, the steering wheel, and I'm giving you different options. You would use whatever fits the situation and what fits your personality. So I've mentioned humor, changing the topic. You could also use collective pronoun. So when you're responding, instead of saying you say we, so that's a collective pronoun. Tumaba ka yata ngayon. You could say, oo nga eh, tignan mo tayo tita, tumaba nga tayo, So mukhang masaya tayo ah. Okay, so the sometimes being healthy, people say it healthy, that means you are you have a little laman, they will say. Sometimes Filipinos, not everybody could see that as a manifestation that you're happy, So because they also have this thing where when you're too thin, so we do. It's true, we do mention physicality a lot, and partly that's human nature. There's a research with babies less than a year old, in which they show them just really pictures of people, and they happen to like those faces that are more symmetrical, I should say, more symmetrical. So the more attractive face, they're more attractive to those faces. So um, there's something that maybe biologically we are geared to, or something that is, maybe if it's a plant and the plant looks like there's fruits, evolutionary psychology, maybe we're geared to move towards that and not with ones that looks thorny, or where we could be trapped. So that's just my theory using the evolutionary psychology. So collective pronouns. Another way to interrupt is to not respond or to delay response. Just kind of like laugh, and then if to change the pattern, if that's not a response you've tried before. Finally, so I mentioned using humor, changing the topic, using collective pronoun, as if the collective pronoun is like tayo, you know, or a no response or a late response. Finally, if this really irritates you, use a cultural whisperer. If you're not aware, I actually have a podcast. It's called Pinoy Love Language Podcast. I talk a lot about cultural whisperer, and that, especially in diaspora, we don't have cultural whisperers. Whisperers are like if you have a misunderstanding with your mom, the tito, the dad, somebody who's both credible to both parties, who is not kind of like subservient to any of the two parties, can actually provide the mom, take it easy on Sarah, for instance. Alam mo naman yan, so he's going to be talking on behalf of Sarah, but he's credible, he's not bad mouthing either one, but trying to explain both the version, what the other person might be feeling that they're not directly sharing. So you might think that this is odd. Why do we have use a third person? Maybe that's our hope. Maybe we use it less. But for now, it's not. It seemed like we need that because there's a higher hierarchy, I should say, in our relationships. And I could say it shouldn't be like that. But as we progress, I'm giving effective ways to work with it at the moment, as maybe we start learning different skills. So rather than being right, I always prefer to be effective in relationship as we're trying to improve um, our relationships for our children and for ourselves. So those are the five things. Okay, so how to respond to hurtful comments without burning bridges. Just know that it's not that one culture is better than the other. I want to highlight that they're just really different. So I hope that you prefer to be effective rather than to be the right one, the self-righteous one. And that's really what enriches our relationships and our ourselves. So this is Roanne Digia Samuels, licensed therapist here in California. Visit calamansijuice.com at ingat lagi. Bye now.